concept about the existence of this particular block of matter that we've called an atom. Now from that time that it was 430 BC, it took around 2000 years down the line for other scientists to come and start advancing on what Democritus had already postulated. So for that case, we see the coming up of scientists like John Dalton. Now Dalton was an English school teacher who actually developed the Dalton atomic theory. And in Dalton's atomic theory, there were 4 arguments or postulates that he came up with. And he said that matter is made up of tiny particles that he referred to as atoms. This was John Dalton's argument. And he also said that atoms of an individual elements are identical. Atoms of an element are identical but different from those of another element. So which means one particular element, suppose this was an element, it will contain similar particles as compared to a different element, which of course will consist of atoms which are different from the first one. Now he also argued that during a chemical reaction, the law of conservation of matter holds, or is just applicable. The law of conservation of matter is applicable. Which means during a chemical reaction, he argued that only the rearrangement of atoms is realized, but there's no new formation of new atoms, or maybe just atoms disappear, which means matter is conserved. And lastly, Dalton's argument was that different atoms form compounds in constant ratios. Of course, we're going to see this one when we're going to study the topic of the mole. So the ratios, he argues that different compounds are formed in constant ratios. So this was John Dalton's argument, where he was trying to advance the work which was done, of course, from the time of Democritus, around 2000 years back. And he argued that matter is made up of tiny particles, which he called atoms. Of course, the idea that we see that was advanced from this time from the word atoms. And he also argued that atoms of elements are identical, so which means an element will constitute characteristic atoms which are different from another one. Number 3 argued that chemical reactions usually observe the law of conservation of matter. And then lastly said that compounds are formed in constant ratios, which of course I've said we're going to see under reactions under the topic of the mole concept. So from John Dalton's time, there were also other scientists who came up, or who came after him, who came up with